One of the more worthless expenditures of time, the drive-in theater is a good place for watching content in an inconvenient manner. It's befitting of a good place neighborhood, taking a regular positive experience and having the minor inconvenience attached to it. Drive-in theaters are really the frozen yogurt of cinema. So I'm going to talk about the world of drive-ins, their size, their amount, and their origins, which means this channel basically considers Gucci as the same level of interest as a drive-in, so I might get some Gucci hitmen sent after me for that. Wonderful. I think I should mention, there are very few drive-in theaters left. As you'd expect, the manner of drive-ins nowadays when we have the wonderful streaming services like Everything Plus, nowadays there are only 325 drive-in theaters maximum in the United States. America is such a big country, centered around consumerism and production, that it's crazy that there's only 325 of anything. I'm pretty sure there are more illegal Kinder Surprise eggs than drive-in theaters. That's only 6.5 drive-in theaters per state. How do you fit half a drive-in into a state? You'd only be able to watch half the movie. Maybe you could put it at the border, but what about the four-way border in the south between Nebraska, Arkansas, Michigan, and Delaware? How would you be able to put a drive-in theater there? Then it would only count for 1/4 of a theater in each state. Then you'd have to put another 1/4 somewhere else to get half, but that would make a 3/4 on the connecting state, and the whole system is messed up now. And that's just the US. There are tons of other places with drive-in theaters. Australia has 12, Iran has 1, and there's an undefined handful in Rome that popped up during the pandemic. Those must have been built last minute on such short notice, but I doubt they were built in a day. Now that I mention it, that makes the most amount of sense for all this. Most people who have some dumb conspiracy theory about COVID claim things about foreign lab, secret shadow cabals, but the only believable truth is that the drive-in cinema industry is responsible for all the chaos we went through last year, just to revive the drive-in theater industry. At their peak, drive-ins were 4,000 strong, the amount of an army, a really, really small army, but technically an army. So, the falling of the industry must have been the catalyst for massive, apocalyptic conspiracy to get us all to watch things but need to be in our own spaces. They also must have sabotaged the world of streaming services by making them all crap and overpriced and have there be too many of them. Actually, I think that's just the companies themselves. Drive-ins have been a thing for almost a century, despite the fact that theaters have existed for thousands of years, and are only worse when crammed in a hot car. So how did we get to this point where one of art's oldest methods is somehow worsened for those participating? As most good things do, it happened in the early mid-1910s. A hybridized car and seat theater existed, which must be the worst possible outcome of this car theater debacle. And yet it was the initial creation, not just the hellish ending. Can you imagine sitting in a movie theater with a car beneath the stands? If you're in a car, you have to see the screen through the dangling feet and butts of everyone above. And if the cars are positioned above the seats, then you could just crush everyone. Although, if they were watching Passengers with Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, then they would probably be grateful. Other than this hybrid, there was actually a full-blown car-only theater back in 1921, down in Comanche, Texas, founded by a fellow named Claude V. Caver, which sounds like the name of a rip-off Dr. Frankenstein. I am Claude V. Caver. Bow before my genius in the creation of a parking lot with a big screen. Mwahaha. But after old Claude V. Caver, we have the first man to officially run a drive-in theater, since he was smart enough to get the patent. Richard M. Hollingshead Jr. What is it with people who have middle initials focusing on drive-in theater work? Is that where D.B. Cooper went to? Anyways, Old Lil Dick Hollingshead established the first official drive-in theater at Mandan, New Jersey in 1933, no doubt due to the 30s prime economic opportunities and New Jersey's growing population of people willing to embrace new ideas. Only about 2 years later, one opened in a place called Shankweller in Pennsylvania. However, for the sake of comedy, I will be exclusively referring to it as Shankwiener. This is the oldest drive-in theater to still be operational, so you're saying it's still an erect Shankwiener. That's saying a lot, because there are a lot of outdoor theater experiments in the early 1920s. Admittedly, it's not the most demented experiment that's ever been done, but it is an American experiment nonetheless. So we can only assume that there have been weird twists and freaks on how best to politicize, monetize, and ostracize the drive-in theater scene. If we imagine all the little experiments that America would do here, let's submit all car parks to LSD gas and make them hallucinate aliens in the movie, or show them films that will subliminally make them loyal to the American government despite any wrongdoing, and automatically opposed to anything that compromises it. You know, like every movie. I don't know for certain, but to my knowledge there hasn't been any parking meters at drive-in theaters, but I can see it being treated as an experiment to charge by the minute, and then the projector conveniently shuts down, and then your car is accidentally bolted to the ground, and now you have to pay for 10 years of parking in a drive-in theater. Thanks, Obama. Do you think if the world became even more reliant on cars as status symbols, we would see segregation and xenophobia not only from the person, but from their car? And then we would see drive-in theaters only letting in Lamborghinis and Teslas, but booting out the others? Get out here and come back when you can pronounce your own name, Hyundai. Honestly, drive-in theaters might actually benefit from a little standards of admittance, because if the movie Grease is to be believed, drive-ins are little more than a petri dish for teenage hormones and drugs. Oh, and also, Grease says that the consent of a woman doesn't seem to matter. There's a lot of parts of Grease that we probably shouldn't live by, but honestly, that hasn't stopped anybody with the Bible. At the end of the day, I guess my problems with drive-ins is that it seems like a downgrade of what existed before it. I mean, theaters existed earlier than drive-ins, so I imagine all of the stuff from incredible theater history that you would have to carry over if you were to do a full commitment. Firstly, you would have to do stage plays like live performances just to people in their cars. That might make imagining them in their underwear a bit difficult, although honestly some of them might actually be in their underwear. I don't think you would get the same play experience in a car. Some asshole would flash his lights, people would need to honk their horns for approval, and any thrown Rotten Tomatoes will just splat the windscreen. Such cruel behavior could anger a spirit haunting these grounds, a soul starved for art and love, doomed to roam this parking lot. The Phantom of the Drive-In Opera, who tried to burn it all down but failed because it was a parking lot and you can't really burn down a parking lot. Could you imagine watching Hamilton on drive-in? First off, I would feel bad by the downgrade of venue, but second of all, I would love to see the upset of the real Alexander Hamilton's ghost when he sees the only venue showing a biographic of his life is just a drive-in. Although, are drive-ins really as unsuccessful as I've been making them out to be? I assume the movie ticket sales of drive-ins are quite small, but why not give a little bit more research in it? Well, the unfortunate truth is that it's very difficult to find any statistics about drive-ins, mostly because people who are good with money would never go near 1 million miles of one, although I was able to confirm two things. One, Avengers Endgame was shown at some drive-in theaters, and these theaters make around 10% profit on the ticket, so that results in film executives getting too much money. Who would have guessed?